Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. This is your neighborhood friendly Oxhorn, and here I am with another Fallout 4 Far Harbor video. This time we're talking all about the new legendary modifications that came with Far Harbor. They've got all sorts of new modifications for ranged weapons, melee weapons, unarmed weapons, and an assortment of armor that really spice up the game a lot. So I'm going to show you every single one for all weapon types and all armor types. Let's start with the Blazing Legendary Modification. This modification gives you a 25% chance to deal 50 fire damage on a successful block. So it only works with melee weapons like swords and machetes and stuff like that, and it only fires when you block, but it's a 25% chance. That means 1 out of every 4 blocks will do 50 fire damage. Now, that said, 50 fire damage is not a whole lot, especially later in the game. So for in-game items, when there are so many other legendary modifications to look at, maybe not the best. Next up is the Charged Effect, and this is also only for melee weapons, and what it does is it has a 10% chance to deal 100 electrical damage on a successful block. So just like the Blazing one, only it's 100 on a successful block, but you only have a 10% chance. That means that to get this to fire, you've got to block 10 times. Not the best in the world, in my opinion. I mean, yeah, it's cool. It's going to add some diversity to the game, but is there anybody who's going to make a weapon with this particular modification part of their end game spec? Probably not. Now, here's my favorite one, the Deadeye Modification. I just so happened to get a Gauss rifle to drop with this modification on it, and I use Gauss rifles, so that's my primary weapon as a long-range sniper, and time slows down for a moment while aiming. I don't know. It's just cool to use. I don't know how useful it's going to be as your final weapon, but I'll tell you how I use it. When I use my Deadeye shielded Gauss rifle, I'd carry 2 with me. One is my VATS enhanced one that allows me to hit more targets in VATS, and the other is my Deadeye one. And when I'm out of AP and I'm still sniping from a long distance, or I'm so far away that VATS can't target the enemies, I'll use my Deadeye rifle, which really slows down time and allows me to get those headshots off. So, yes, I do have to carry 2 of these guns with me, one with the VATS enhanced effect and one with the Deadeye effect. But the Deadeye effect is really cool. Next is the Defiant Effect. The final shot in each magazine deals twice the normal damage using the Defiant Legendary Modification, which is pretty interesting. This is going to be more useful for weapons that have really small clips, and many of us will modify our weapons to have the largest clips possible so that we're not constantly stuck in a reload state. So if you have a weapon that has modifications on it to have short clips and to reload much more quickly, then this may be a useful weapon, but when compared to some of the other legendary modifications like 2-Shot, it's not all that useful, and you're just not going to see it that often. Now, the Frigid Modification is the only one that works for unarmed weapons. You're going to find this on melee weapons, and it's the only one with the new DLC that comes for unarmed weapons. But the Frigid Modification gives you a 20% chance to freeze your enemy when you block their attack. So this is going to be great for an unarmed build. If you have an unarmed build and you use the knuckles all the time, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, that means that 1 out of every 5 blocks you freeze your enemy. So if you're blocking constantly and you feel like you're getting pretty good at that in your battle gameplay, then this may be a useful one for you, especially since there's such a lack of legendary modifications for unarmed weapons to begin with. Now here's another fun one, the Hitman's Legendary Weapon Modification. This gives you plus 10% damage while aiming. So this could potentially be a really cool modification for snipers, but if I had to choose between this and the Deadeye modification, I would choose Deadeye. It's just going to make it so much easier to get those coveted headshots. Next up is the Resilient Modification. This gives you 150 damage resistance while reloading. This is going to be a great one, especially earlier in the game when you're mobbed by enemies and you haven't been able to modify your weapon to get larger clips or anything like that. So you're running around and you're constantly reloading. This increases your damage resistance by a whopping 150 while you're reloading, which is pretty great. So I would recommend this modification for people who are early in the game or in the middle of the game who find themselves constantly reloading because they haven't upgraded their guns yet. Now, the Resolute Weapon modification is an interesting one. Time slows down for a moment when chambering the final round in a magazine. It's a very, very specific legendary modification. So chambering the final round means that you're loading the final round into it. This doesn't activate after you fire. This doesn't activate when you're aiming. This only activates when your gun is putting the bullet into the barrel, when you're chambering the final round. So there are going to be some very unique circumstances where this is going to be useful. I can't see a situation where I would want this particular legendary modification, but there may be some of you who would work this into a pretty clever build. The last weapon modification that came with the Far Harbor DLC is the Steadfast Weapon modification. It gives you plus 50 damage resistance while you're aiming. Pretty interesting. Again, I don't think I would want this more than the Deadeye modification or some of the other legendary effects, because it's going to only be useful if people are shooting back at you while you're aiming. Now, it may be more useful if you're not using scopes. So, for example, if you have a lot of your perks in Commando and you use a lot of automatic weapons and you don't use scopes and instead you use the reflex sights or something like that, you're going to be aiming a lot more often because you're using a simple reflex sight. So that could potentially be fairly useful. It's just going to depend on a case-by-case situation, depending upon the build that you've chosen. Next up is armor. I'm really excited about all of the new armor legendary modifications because some of them are pretty cool and some of them we only had access to with power armor in the past. First up is the auto Stim modification. It automatically uses a Stim pack when you're hit while health is 25% or less once every 60 seconds. So a lot of conditions there, but basically if you're really low on health, you'll automatically use a Stim pack, but only once every 60 seconds. So it's one of those nice things that you can sort of set and forget. If you tend to take a lot of damage, if your character is really squishy, you don't use power armor very often, you rely upon your primary armor for almost everything, and you're constantly being mobbed by enemies, by melee enemies, then yes, this is going to be a pretty helpful legendary modification. Next up, and my favorite of all of the different legendary mods that come with Far Harbor, is the Cloaking Legendary Mod. Being hit in melee generates a stealth field once per 60 seconds. So for those of you who have used power armors, you remember that there is a mod that you can install on the legs of your power armors that automatically puts you in a cloaking field whenever you crouch. Now this isn't the same, but it's similar. So when you get hit in melee combat, it'll generate a stealth field, but it only does it once every 60 seconds. Now the thing about this particular piece of armor is that it still takes into consideration all of the perks of your build. So yeah, if you get hit and you get popped into stealth, but your character is a melee character, or you don't have any points spec'd into sneak, or you're moving around really loudly, or then you suddenly just start attacking somebody, all of those things could pop you out of stealth immediately. So I think this is really only going to be useful for sneak builds. If you're a sniper and you're moving around, or if you rely upon pickpocket and the Sandman perk to kill many of your enemies, then this may be useful. An enemy might surprise you and then attack you, but you pop into stealth, giving you a chance to run away. It's not going to be useful for giving you a chance to attack your enemy again, but it's going to be useful for giving you a chance to run away. The Cryogenic Modification gives you a 10% chance to freeze melee attackers once every 20 seconds. So the restriction is only every 20 seconds, which is nice, but you only get a 10% chance. So this is going to be useful against melee enemies who attack you fairly frequently with repeated attacks. Not too useful against big, powerful enemies like Deathclaws, who do large, powerful attacks slowly, but most likely they're going to be useful against smaller enemies that do repeated attacks frequently that tend to be less powerful. The Incendiary Legendary Modification gives you a 30% chance to ignite melee attackers, but only once every 20 seconds. Pretty cool, but not as cool in my opinion as the Cryogenic one. The Cryogenic one will actually freeze the enemy. It gives you a chance to back up and use some chems or use some meds and recuperate so that you can get back in the fight. The Incendiary Legendary Modification is cool. It's going to be helpful, but it's not going to be a game changer. Here's my second favorite legendary modification, the Rad Powered Modification. It grants additional strength the higher your rads. Let me show you how I use this. I'm still collecting a full suit of Rad Powered armor. I only have one piece. But the reason that I want a full suit is because when I go out hunting for junk, where I'm scavenging, trying to get items for my settlements, I get encumbered very quickly. But if I have a full suit of Rad Powered combat armor that grants additional strength the higher my rads is, I can hop in the water, get irradiated really quickly, and suddenly I've got a full suit of armor that is giving me a huge strength bonus, which is going to allow me to carry more items when I'm running around the world looting absolutely everything I can find. So a pretty cool, useful, utilitarian legendary modification, which is one of my favorites. The final armor modification that came with Far Harbor is the Unyielding armor modification. It grants +3 to all stats, but only when you're at 25% or less health. Now, of course, the question is, do these stack? So let's say you've got a full set of Unyielding armor. Does that mean that you're going to get +3 to all stats for every piece of armor that you have? Does that mean that you can get +15 to all of your stats if you're wearing a full suit of this and if you're at 25% or less health? If so, that's quite insane, and I can see many instances where that would be useful. That said, I don't know if these stack or not. I don't have the full set. I only have this one piece. I haven't been able to test it. So that's a question I'm going to have to leave for you guys to answer. If you know whether or not the Unyielding stat stacks for other pieces of armor that you equip, let me know in the comments below, because I would love to know the answer to this. If the answer is yes, then I could definitely see an Unyielding set of armor being one of my go-to pieces of armor, even when I am scavenging, right? Because then I can just put on a full suit of Unyielding, and then I've got +15 strength. That's going to significantly increase my carry capacity when picking up junk. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen, a short, sweet video. This is a summary and overview of every single new legendary weapon and armor modification that came with Bethesda's latest Fallout 4 DLC, Far Harbor. Some of them are alright, some of them are really cool. I'm really excited about the Deadeye one. I'm using it in my rotation now. Thank you everybody for watching, and be sure to subscribe for more Fallout 4 content and more Far Harbor content. Thanks a lot for watching.